It's us appearing in your podcast feed. The longest anyone's ever had to wait to hear us since this podcast started. Which is wild that that's true. Yeah, so I guess just getting right into it. Hi, I'm Matthew.
I'm Alex. And Jake's not here. Jake got a new fancy job, and he's a busy boy. So in the meantime, while Jake is figuring out his schedule, Matt and I are going to record a series of bonus episodes. We do have an idea for a series, so I mean, I don't know exactly how long it's going to go for, but we're thinking we'll adjust slightly, maybe switch to an every other week schedule. There'll be shorter episodes. It'll be a bit more casual, a little less strict than our big bracket format.
Yeah, this is the instead of the tough cut, instead of making hard choices.
Ooh, yeah, what's it gonna be?
It's gonna be like a casual watch.
This is the casual cut.
Yeah, it's the casual cut. It's the Sunday night movie. It's the I don't know. We're just hanging out for a couple of weeks.
We're just hanging out, yeah.
And
Jake's great though. We hope he'll be back soon. But in the meantime, this is what you got.
Yeah, so this is episode 115 of the Tough Cut podcast, episode 1 of the casual cut.
Casual cut.
And basically, Alex and I started chatting. What's a movie series that neither of us have seen that like people know and love and we can kind of dive into and take a bit of a stroll through? And lo and behold, we found out neither of us have seen any of the John Wick movies.
That's right. None of us have seen the movie. I had vague ideas of what it was. And I'm curious to know like what you knew about it as well. The extent of my knowledge was he's getting revenge for his dog, and that was like everything I knew. I'm curious how much you knew going in.
Yeah, so we'll still do the little intro-y thing here. John Wick, released in 2014, directed by Chad Stahelski. Apologies on the pronunciation there. Keanu Reeves as John Wick is the man who you call to kill the boogeyman, and he just kills a bunch of guys. It's a very fun movie. What did I know coming into this is exactly what you said. Literally the only thing I've absorbed through cultural osmosis about this series is that his dog gets killed and he goes and kills the guys who kill his dog. And that is all I know of the 4 movies that exist.
I think there are 4, yeah. Yeah,
same for me. One just came out. So getting the opportunity to sit down and jump into this series, I also knew that like pretty action oriented, like known for its like gunfights, like that's what people love about the series.
As well. Yeah.
Getting to watch this, I had a really, really good time with it.
It's so good. I'm so excited to watch this series. I think like what surprised me the most was that, like, okay, I knew the whole premise is like he's getting revenge for the guys who killed his dog, right? And I knew that, but I didn't realize like just how effective it would be at like emotionally investing you in the dog. You know, like the beginning is so sad and heartbreaking, and then the dog is so cute and so heartwarming, and it's like he's just coming around on it when those guys kill it. Oh man, it's effective.
It's a really effective, and I was actually surprised that it's basically like the first 15 minutes of the movie. Like they waste no time endearing you to this dog. So I can only imagine if I had sat down in 2014 in theaters to see this movie and then have the dog die without knowing that's where it was going, would have been destroyed.
Oh yeah. It's crazy. This movie rocked.
So that's like the central thesis here is that like the action choreography, I knew that that's what people liked about it, but actually getting to see it is pretty remarkable. Like,
yeah,
they do it really well. It is
And I
not full. Go ahead.
I feel like they're dynamic too. Like none of them feel the same. Like when the guys are breaking into his house to kill him versus when he's in the nightclub versus like the shootout in the parking lot. Like it all feels really different. It's really cool.
Yeah, and they're also like dynamic action scenes. So
Yeah.
there's always like something that happens to create a complication or that makes it a little bit more interesting. You know, it's taking place all in the dark, like it's a home invasion. It's taking place in that parking lot and he gets slammed with a car. Like there's always like the dynamic addition to the scene that's going to create some kind of complication. Even like, and I feel like that's a trend that runs through a lot of this movie. You know, John Wick's getting strangled, he's fighting back, and Willem Dafoe, hero assassin, just domes a guy. Like, I feel like the dynamic nature of this film is really central to what makes it work.
Yeah, totally. Totally.
With that said, though, I hesitate to say that this is a movie that's light on story or plot. The film it really reminds me of in how it approaches its storytelling is actually Pig, if that makes sense.
Yes. I had the exact same feeling.
Even like a super high level plot piece, guy goes back into the world he left behind to save a beloved pet or to, you know, in relation to a beloved pet.
And through the course of his like re-entry, you learn more about his background and the world and all that stuff. Yeah, totally. 100%.
Which is, go ahead.
It's interesting because you still feel like you're getting a lot of information because it's like very slowly teasing out the backstory, but it doesn't actually need to provide much ongoing context or change in the current narrative because the twists and turns come from things that happened in the past, like learning about relationships and dynamics and things.
I actually like love the world building of this movie.
Yeah, it's super good.
And it's done super, super naturalistically in a similar way to Pig. Like, John Wick knows about all this stuff. Like,
Yeah.
they are presupposing the character knows about it, so they're not wasting time explaining it. And it gets to, like, endear you to what are essentially some really interesting choices. Like, the existence of the Continental, this, like, organization / hotel for assassins that has, like, really strict rules. It's just like it's just super cool. Like I was nerding out over like, you know, like what the value of a coin is. You see that John Wick first, they set it up, has so many of these. You're like, oh, these gold coins. He's just like, I don't know, traded out all his money for gold. And then you find out that these are like a direct currency used by this organization and like what the value of a single one of them is. It like naturally like recontextualizes information about the character. It's so cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. Did you see they actually released a trailer somewhat recently, I think, for a movie that's just a prequel story about the creation of the hotel and the guy that he meets that like runs the hotel?
It's no, I did not see that. That is
So continuing to stay relevant, the Casual Cut podcast. This movie's great. I feel like the way it like introduces characters, it does all of this stuff where, you know, you'll meet someone before you know the context of them. And I feel like a lot of movies, in the way that they introduce you to characters, they do so that way you immediately know like who they are, their like vibe and all that. I feel like this movie, because of the way they frame the assassins and the way they frame John's relationship to everyone, like the other assassin in the hotel, like I can't remember any of their names, but the way he like says hi to people, or the bartender, or the like other guy who gets killed by the assassin, like when he's like watching her for John, you know, like all this stuff is like approached with such a casual manner, and then they every time reaffirm like, wait, no, these are assassins, like these are highly skilled, like dangerous people. It's very fun.
The couple of quick ones I'll throw out is like there's a lot of good whiskey in this movie. They got Glenlivet 18, they got some Blantons, which I just think is like a nice touch. I love just looking out for the whiskeys they include in movies. And the ones they opt to drink in this one is just a lot of fun. And then secondly, related to the fight choreography, there's clearly like, I wish, casual cut, I wish I'd done a little bit more research on like the production of this and like who worked on the fight choreography, etc. Because there's clearly a lot of care put into like the, I don't know, the handling of firearms and like tactical approaches. There's a little thing that like, I don't know, SWAT, etc. are trained on when you're like in like enclosed interior environments called center axis relock, where you keep your like a handgun close to you rather than like at arm's length. And John Wick does it constantly. And it's like a little tell of like, oh, like this was clearly made by people who like care about thinking through how like a trained assassin would function in these various different environments. Like, it's not just that there's really great fight choreography, it's like actually thought out or, you know, composed well, which is just really cool. And then also a scene that I think really emblematizes a lot of the world building that I love, or two of them. The speech from Vigo about who John Wick is like the most straightforward exposition we get in the entire film. Yeah. And I just love the line of he's the guy who you call to kill the boogeyman.
That rocks. That's such an awesome character description. I bet that was like in the log line for the movie. That's how they pitch it. God, it's so good.
And that cut to John Wick, literally, like, symbolically and literally unearthing this previous life by smashing his floor with a sledgehammer to pull his guns out, is like such an incredible, like, visual metaphor. I feel like I have thrown around like deceptively smart a lot. I don't think this movie's deceptively smart. I just think like people cared a lot about it.
Yeah.
And it shows.
Yeah. I think it's very clear that like maybe the audience going to see it doesn't necessarily care about that, but the people who made it wanted to make sure it like stood the test of time in that sense.
Yeah. So watching this movie almost 10 years later, it holds up. And then the other scene I want to just briefly touch on, because I think it's great, is so the female assassin that took the bid to break the Continental's rules and attempt to kill John Wick, Perkins, her execution, I think, is just like such an incredible moment of world building in what is like, there's basically zero fanfare to it. It's just like your membership to the Continental has been revoked and they just shoot her in the head.
Yeah.
Just this movie does so much so effectively to like create a really interesting world. And the last thing I'll say on it is it reminds me a lot of like world building for like a tabletop role playing game. As someone who runs a lot of TTRPGs and runs one shots, etc., like this is like really effective naturalistic world building, and I just wish I could do more like it.
Yeah, it's super cool. It really is effective at only shows you scenes of like Vigo and characters in the Continental, like Perkins, for like explicit important world building and context setting, where like everything with John is, you know, story, right, for the most part. It's fascinating. It's so good.
So with that, the two of us, as we said, have not seen any of the movies in this series. We're now 1/4 of the way in. John Wick 2. How does this movie set up a sequel? What do we think it's going to be about? What are some predictions here? What are we getting ourselves into?
So here's what I'm dreading. Here's the elephant in the room, right? At the end of the movie, he gets another dog. I just have a terrible feeling. You know, like, I feel like it's going to happen again, right?
On some level, that is so funny to think about. It's like, hey, man, we had a really good inciting incident. It's almost like a little wink and a nod at the audience if that's what they go with.
Yeah.
Man, that'd be funny.
It'd be crazy. It'd be awful, but so funny. I think like okay. So here's the question though. Obviously this one is terrible happenstance, right? Like John is forced back into this life. Do we think he's back in it now? And he doesn't need another like strong reason to keep doing it? Do we think he's like trying to get out? Like where do we think he is at the end of this movie?
So I have a couple of thoughts. So since watching this, I've been thinking about the movie a little bit, and I think firstly, I'm not entirely convinced they went into this with the expectation of making a sequel.
Yeah.
Feels like they felt like they wrapped things up really nicely and just had this like cool shot into the world, and that was kind of going to be it. Movie probably made quite a bit of money. It's popular, cultural osmosis. I heard about little bits and pieces. I feel like where they leave John's character at the end of this film, I think they'll probably try and leverage some kind of personal relationship instead, like rather than just killing one with a dog, like an old friend or like like they showed with Willem Dafoe's character, he has a lot of close personal connections. I feel like they're going to play some of that angle a little bit more. Into
Maybe
the
it's
second
like one
piece.
of them needs his help or something. Because
Yeah.
I wonder if they'll like do the someone dies and it's a revenge story again, or if it's like
I think they'll make him more proactive.
interesting.
I think the idea of an old friend needing help, it kind of flips the table of like Willem Dafoe steps in to help John Wick here. And maybe
What
we're
happens
going to
when
see like
he
an
steps
inversion of
in?
that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea. That's fun.
I also think it's clear, I guess, especially they're making a TV show. I think the Continental is going to play a huge role in like whatever that organization is.
Yeah, it's gonna be more fleshed out and all that.
Yeah. So like, maybe it's another member of the Continental, or maybe, I don't know, like we eventually build to, we see Perkins just get fucking executed by this organization. They're immensely powerful amongst a world of highly trained assassins. Like, what happens when you put John Wick against the Continental? Like,
Ooh.
Do
we think that happens in 2 though? That
not
seems like
necessarily
a big load to drop,
I feel like that's something they'll build towards eventually, but that's been swimming around in my head of like, if I was charting out where this was going to go from here, like maybe that's like the eventual end point. Because that's a big one. But I think an old friend needing help, the inversion of the relationship, I think is probably what incites the next one. Digging in more to the Continental as like a piece of the world. And then obviously, I think maybe not much like the Fast and Furious franchise, but I think given that there's 4 of these, I think these will have to consistently escalate their like set pieces to do, like we talked about some of the dynamic action being really important. Oh my god, I can't say that word. Dynamicism. Sure, we'll go with it. Being central to what like makes a lot of these action scenes and other scenes in this movie interesting. I think that will continue to escalate and get bigger and bigger. There'll be bigger complications. There'll be like greater reason for something to not go well, etc.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what some of the set pieces are. And I guess also interested to see, is it going to be based in another like New York City-esque, or I guess it probably was New York City, in like a
because it's
big
not the Continental. It's not the Flatiron Building. It's the other one that looks like it.
I don't fucking know. And I live here.
We don't have an architect. Anyway, go ahead.
Like, I wonder if it's going to be set in this like big metro area again, or if it'll be like more spanning. Ooh. I'm curious to see, like, is it uncovering something, like someone's being hunted and he needs to like figure out who's hunting and then hunt them, like I wonder if it like where it's going to be, what the vibe is, It's interesting.
That's really
should we try? We've got, I don't know, like
10 minutes.
5-10 minutes here. Should we try to plot out John Wick 2? I think it picks up right after the first one. I think it's like he's at a funeral for Willem Dafoe. And right? Like I feel like if it's like the place to be,
especially because this one so early into its runtime, the first one, has Willem Dafoe meet John Wick at a funeral. I like the inversion of like something similar happening again. Like it's parallel storytelling, and it sets up really well this idea of John Wick being put in the shoes to be proactive and help someone he knows, which I really like.
Okay, at a funeral for Willem Dafoe, maybe he brought the dog with him. And I think there's someone else at the funeral who like pulls him aside this time. Or Willem Dafoe pulled him aside last time, but I think they pull him aside and they're like, John, I need your help. And he's like, I need to get my dog home. Like, I can't help you. Like, I've got things to take care of. And he goes home.
Got this dog.
And then maybe the person follows him, or maybe the people hunting them like follow John. I think the dog dies. I think the dog has to die.
It's the only way. It's what this series is built on.
I really think it's gonna happen again.
I'll part of me thinks it won't happen yet, but I'll grant it to you. We'll include it in our version. He's dragged back in, so it still ends up being a revenge story.
Yeah. Oh, that actually is a good point. They do not. I feel like we don't get many like solid, feel good revenge stories. I feel like this is, we talked about it I talked about it with Princess Bride a little bit of like Inigo Montoya's revenge story is like a very rare story that like someone wants revenge and gets revenge and feels good about it. And I feel like we get that in this movie and it's awesome,
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sans getting brought back into the world of assassins that's likely going to continue his life.
Yeah. I mean, bad for him, but good for us, right?
Yeah. And I do think he is emotionally in a better spot as a result of it. The movie does seem to take a stance that there is, in fact, an emotional catharsis that comes from killing people you hate, which we can't unpack right now.
Well, it's really interesting. It really goes into the, like, Gandhi eye for an eye thing. But then it, like, is also like, yeah, but, like, it's not all bad, right?
Hey, he gets a new dog out of it.
Yeah, he gets a new dog, new car.
True. So really, he's...
Yeah, wait, did he get his old car back?
I feel like
they don't say.
Yeah, they don't show it. I don't know.
That's an interesting point. Because it becomes less about like, I'm gonna go get my car back, and more about like, I'm gonna ruin this person.
Oh, and he does. So I feel like jumping to globe spanning is probably too big a scope for the second one.
I agree.
I think this is new locale, but it stays like gets pulled somewhere else. Trying to proactively help someone. I also think that there almost will be like an enemy from like I was gonna say enemies to lovers, but I realize that's just my crooked brain. Like a enemy to ally. Like a former opponent that I don't know, ends up like gaining back John's trust over the course of the film or something. Like, I don't know. I feel like it's hard predicting this film because I don't know what the escalation it's not entirely clear what type of escalation they're going to go for.
This guess is really a shot in the dark. I feel like when we're going from 2 to 3, we'll have a much better idea of like how the series is building and stuff.
Yeah, like do I think that John Wick is going to continue to be like a one-man wrecking crew, or is he going to have some like closer allies in through the second film? Like that makes sense as like a clear form of escalation, but I don't know if that's the direction they want to go because
I think it's just him. Like, I think he's helping someone maybe, and they're around, but I think it's largely just him being a one-man wrecking crew. Because I feel like that's what was so good in the first one.
Because I get to meet, the man
you get to meet everyone.
Man.
Well, and you get to see that, like, he is a step above, right? Like, he is something else. Like, there was a reason he is so feared, right? Mm-hmm. And so I feel like we'll see him continuing to do that in an escalating fashion.
Yeah, continuing to be like the one-man wrecking crew. So, okay. I don't think we're going to have time to plot out, and I think we've come to this kind of conclusion that 1 to 2, I feel like the first movie wrapped up, not like fairly conclusively of like, this is a complete story. The second one, they make a bunch of money. They're like, oh, we've got absolute passion to keep making these. I think it'll be structurally somewhat similar to the first one. It's not going to jump the shark yet. I think pulled in like parallel storytelling of a friend. Alex is certain the dog will die.
I don't think he gets a third dog in this movie, though. I bet that happens in the third one.
It's a Fibonacci sequence of dogs.
Yeah. So where do you think this one ends, though? Like, I think this one probably sets up a third one more directly.
I like the idea in thinking like, rule of threes, that this one builds to a confrontation with the Continental. Like,
Ooh.
like maybe there's some big reveal at the end that like, I don't know.
Oh, like the people secretly, like, actually manipulating the strings were like with the Continental.
Yeah, exactly. And then like rule of threes, that third one chiefly focuses on like, we're taking down the big fish now,
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty fun. Except like there's a fourth one.
Yeah, that's true.
But so we'll see.
maybe it's like, but like rule of threes, like maybe it was envisioned, they started plotting it out as a trilogy, and then I don't know, they did really cool stuff.
Yeah, maybe the third and fourth one is like a part 1 and 2.
Oh, that'd be sick.
That'd be really cool.
Either way, any final thoughts, predictions?
No, I'm really staking a lot of money here on the dog dying again.
That's
my big. If you have one big prediction, what's your one thing?
I really like the John is pulled in more proactively and is like an old friend is seeking help. I like that. Yours is the dog dies. What's your if you put a percentage on that?
I think I'm 75%, maybe 80% the dog dies. Like, I'm pretty sure.
I think it's about the same. Probably about the same on my prediction. John Wick's gonna kill a guy. 100%.
Fuck, I don't know, man. What if he goes the Batman route and he's like, I can't kill anyone anymore? Maybe that's John Wick 4.
I'm tired of killing. Then his dog kills someone.
And then his dog kills someone and he has to hunt down the dog?
Honestly,
my dog betrayed me.
If this movie doesn't pick up right where this one ends, I'm going to say about 45% chance the dog kills someone during the runtime. If they give time for the dog to have grown up, like, I'm feeling it.
That would be so funny. Okay. Well, I'm happy with our predictions here. We'll see how we did next time.
Yeah.
On the casual cut.
Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed a little foray to something a little more just like, hey, we have a movie series we heard is good and just kind of want to watch it. No voting, nothing crazy, just a little, fun little ride here.
Yeah, and if you want to watch along, I guess we should have said this at the beginning of the episode, watch John Wick. And before episode 2 comes out in 2 weeks, watch John Wick 2.
And don't send us any spoilers. I literally know nothing of the second, third, fourth movies. Same. I guess I have one scene.
I don't even have that. All I know is that Keanu Reeves is in them.
I have one scene, but I don't know which movie it's from. So I look forward to seeing it, and I get to point at the screen and go, I've seen that on the internet. Yeah, so thank you very much. Rate and review the show on all your favorite podcasting platforms. Follow us on social media at Tough Cut Pod. I don't know, the writers and SAG strike is still ongoing, so say you don't like the studios but love the movies. I don't know. What else do I say? It's been literally, again, the longest we've ever gone without recording an episode, and I feel like my brain doesn't know how to do this anymore. And watch John Wick 2 along with us for next week or 2 weeks from now. Something like that. From now. Cool.
Yeah. Cool. How do we close this out, Matt? What's the last thing we always end with?
We play like a softer version of our.
Don't make me make new music. Don't make me make new music, Matt.
I'm kidding. Okay, the casual cut is canceled.
No. Sorry, guys. No episodes until Jake's coming back.